when we shipped our first lot of stock, and it was a moment of passing the buck. We've done it, we've made hardware, it's with our distributors, and will now be sold. Imagine our surprise then when all of those customers had bought the product, taken them home, connected them to their app, they're now our customers again. We needed to provide service and support to those customers, but it also meant we had a channel to communicate with them directly and also sell services and further features. That was the real starting point, I think, for our business and for our platform. In that time, I've also witnessed a shift in the appliance industry as a whole. Job titles that include digitalisation and innovation are more commonplace. We've got labs and incubators in large corporates, and there's a much more open approach to partnering with small businesses like ours. There's been a marked reduction in the need to own and control everything within that entire system, and that's the environment we need to be able to provide services and thrive in the smart kitchen. Data can be seen as quite a scary word at the moment, I think. We all trade our data with businesses every day in exchange for services, going on Facebook when you're bored on the train or getting an Uber to a meeting. In the smart kitchen, we're in people's homes. We're not just in people's homes, we're in the most important room of that home, the room that people spend the most money on, the room that people spend the most time in. This is why the digital services that we provide have to be making a noticeable improvement to the customer's day-to-day life. True value needs to be at the core of the services that we're providing. We've marketed and sold that product, so in my opinion at that point, we've done the hard bit. We've made it, we've marketed it, we've sold it. We're now in a position to support our customers in using that product in their homes. Once an equal balance of data for service has been established, customers are happy to exchange their data. So we know that an equal exchange has to take place. For the business providing a digital service, you're creating revenue streams with low maintenance and high margins, which I think anybody that makes hardware will really appreciate. Having a connection with that customer means that you can increase that lifetime value with a reoccurring revenue. We have opportunities like cutting down on supply chain logistics, reducing waste, and even having the chance to make healthy food and food education cheap and accessible. As a customer, you have the chance to benefit from services that will make your cooking better. You can whip up a healthy, tasty meal from the remnants of a near-empty fridge and use more than one feature on your oven. No longer will you just plug in your fridge and leave it there for 10 years. The opportunity for digital services in the smart kitchen are plentiful. One of the topics that comes up frequently in our industry is the concept of a managed fridge. The possibility that us as service providers know for the next week how many people will be eating, what things on what days in which household. We know when they will need which appliances, ingredients and recipes on which day. Produce with expiry dates to match that schedule can be delivered and replenished just in time and as required, all of which is managed in the background with customers supported throughout. At this event, we have all of the people and expertise required to make the managed fridge happen. The interest in the reduction of food waste, living healthier lives, and the reality of people having less and less time shows how incredibly useful this service could be. To make the managed fridge a reality, or make any digital service a reality in the smart kitchen, we require a network between food manufacturers, food retailers, logistics providers, appliance manufacturers, and platforms like us. The industries of food manufacturing and retailing, cooking and storage within the kitchen have always been running in parallel since I've been in the industry. The advent of the smart kitchen and the services that the customers want mean that we will all need to work across all of the areas to provide meaningful and, most importantly, commercially successful offerings. The most successful businesses that have created a digital service that are those that have leaned on existing tech and innovation. They've partnered with experts in the fields that they're not experts in, and they've provided services that have enhanced their existing product lines. Although frightening at the time, having all of those customers in direct contact with us from the start has allowed us to grow at the pace and in the direction that we have. Having that connection with the customer is incredibly important and rewarding in this new era. Thank you very much.
So, one of the things we were talking about last night a little bit at the happy hour, not the happy hour, the cocktail event. It was very happy. I drank water all night. Was this concept of so value for the customer, right? And how much value, and you touched upon it in your presentation. We need to make sure that we're not just asking for data and then providing a poor experience. One, you're not going to get that engagement and that return. Two, you're going to potentially lose sort of longer term the value of this as a concept in the market. But one thing that comes to mind when you talk about data too is privacy and sort of making sure, and trust, right? And so I think big companies have all kinds of issues around that, whether you can be a large company and have done a great job building trust with your customers, you can be a big company and sort of have an iffy reputation. How do you do that as a startup? How do you sort of build a customer base that trusts you and feels like they can, they're okay downloading that app because they feel like you are, you're good. They're not going to do anything to their data.
Dodgy.
Well,
for us, building a brand has been a slow process. I think having that direct communication that I spoke about with customers, they're talking directly to us. So that instinctively builds trust. They're not buying products off of somebody that they never speak to again. I think that communication, ongoing communication really helps. And really, it's what you're doing with that data. If you're asking people for data and not giving them a service back in return, that is a concern for people. You're just collecting and mining people's information. If you're saying to them, let me know what butter you use and I'll make sure that you never run out of butter, that's acceptable and understandable, and people are happy to do that.
The managed fridge concept, I think, is interesting because on the one hand, when you start to say, we'll know everything that people are eating every night, every ingredient, you start to get a little bit like, well, you could see how people would think that was weird. And then I started to think, or you could solve the global food crisis, because then you would know on such a micro level where people were getting food, where the food was still needing to go. You know what I mean? So that on a waste level, so you're talking about individual fridges potentially changing long-term global food supply issues?
I would love something we were doing to contribute to something so
Right.
important.
Yeah.
That would be the dream. I think the way we've felt about it and the way we've thought about it was very much around even supermarkets with families.
Right.
Everybody instinctively, when they're at the supermarket, will go and look for the last date, the latest date of a product which is giving them the most opportunity to use that produce in a period of time. What we can do with the managed fridge is that if you're cooking bolognese on Monday, you get mince that will last till that Monday. If you're cooking it on the Friday, you get it on the Friday. That's what, even that small change would make such a huge difference to food waste and the amount of food supermarkets are throwing away.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably every single person in here has that sinking feeling of having to throw produce that's gone bad because you haven't cooked it yet or you haven't gotten to it yet. The concept of building this network, so when you're talking about kind of putting a call out to everyone who's at this conference, we have to do a better job of building a network and not working in parallel. So whether we're retailers or food manufacturers or appliance makers, who in that network, not brand, but who out of those groups has been fastest to the table to build this network, and who do you feel like still needs the education to kind of get there in terms of those groups?
In our experience in the UK, food retailers are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. They're looking at ways technology can improve the way that they manage their shops. They're looking at ways that technology can connect them with their customers, and they seem to be much more open and much more technologically advanced than other areas. I think hardware businesses, the people that are making the appliances, naturally are slower to the table because there's much more that needs to change. When you're used to doing something as narrow as manufacturing product, to move away from that is very uncomfortable, even if the opportunity can be huge. But they are, again, even in the time we've been around, there's been huge movements in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you get, when you sit down in business conversations or whatnot, do you get the question like, how are we, the Amazon question, right? Like, how are we all going to fight Amazon, who's literally going into every crevice of every part of that network and more, right?
Yeah. I get that question pretty much every business meeting that I do with appliance manufacturers and brands. Amazon are a real threat because they move fast, they are good at what they do, but we're better. And the thing that I will always say in response is being open and working with experts in each field. You don't need to, as a large company, you don't need to know it all, you don't need to own it all. Being able to work with startups, work with development teams and other things, yeah.
It seems like that actually has been a value and that surprisingly some of these older industries have actually done a good job embracing, where startups, maybe interacting with startups was a little bit of a tricky concept in the past, but the reality of there are these bigger companies that are moving very quickly, and in order to keep up with the Amazons of the world, we need to make sure that we're embracing innovation, we're bringing other folks in, we're adding that type of expertise to our network or team without having to build it ourselves in-house, which might take a lot longer.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting. I am really excited to invite Ramona on stage, Ramona Willing from Thermomix.